Hello and welcome to episode 67 of the Movies in a Podshell podcast, the podcast where we take a theme. What could this week's theme be? Bullied directors? I don't know. As always, I'm joined by, I had a little name for him, but it's gone now, but I am joined by John.
He's so excited about recording on our new audio platform that he genuinely forgot what he was going to say. That's about the crux of it.
No, the real reason is because John pressed record, and then I had a countdown. I was like, "Oh, this is all snazzy with a countdown."
Pressure.
We've, I think, over the last, I would say maybe like 3 months or so, we've moved to video, and we've been testing different platforms. I'm not going to mention any because I don't really want to. Yeah. I don't really want to like poo-poo anyone, but we found the ultimate platform, and you will see from my camera quality, it's just much better. I probably sound so crisp.
Riverside, give us a free subscription, yeah?
Yeah, no, it's expensive, yeah. So we've moved to this new one, which is it's very, very posh, isn't it, John?
Before we do anything else, Jamie, behind you, I can see a very special beer can, which I feel like should be given its due credit on camera. Can you? This
wasn't part of the show.
It genuinely wasn't, but I can see it.
This is the official. Non-official.
It's definitely not official.
It's definitely not official. So
Lawsuit coming.
We don't want sued. This is the 5-star review can of beer by Brewdog. Movies in a Podshell edition. Can you believe it?
So who did this for you and how?
So we, so what we do, and there was way more of these, but I drank them. And for anyone who is also listening on the audio pod, I have a can of beer, and it's called 5-star review. And it's got a Movies in a Podshell picture on it. The brand is Brewdog, because I believe they do it. So we every year, me, my brother and sister, etc., we do Secret Santa. Instead of buying everyone a present, we draw out of a hat, and whoever we get, we buy a present for, and the budget is 25 quid. So that was my gift. So and yeah, I didn't even know that was even a thing. So I was.
Can you make custom cans online? Not that I'm shitting out for Brewdog or anything, but I didn't know that was a thing. That's really cool.
Crazy, isn't it? Yeah. How good's that?
There we go. Anyway, sorry, I should be asking the real questions, which is like, Jamie, have you managed to watch anything new over Christmas, or has it just been the Christmas repeat list? I know we're in the new year now, so no one wants to talk about Christmas anymore. But
I mean, I've watched loads. I've actually watched quite a bit, which is as always,
as usual.
So I guess, we'll talk about. It's funny, but I realise this episode's going to be crazy because we'll be talking about Rebel Moon and Godzilla Minus One, which I need to stop calling it Godzilla Minus Zero because that's what I keep calling it for some reason. I don't know why. Weird. We'll discuss why it's called Godzilla Minus One because I had no idea. But yeah, I've watched a few films, some that I liked, some that I didn't like so much. But I did like Past Lives, which is obviously it's on a lot of people's like top 3 lists, I would say, maybe even best film of the year. I give it a 3.5 stars not out of 10, because that'd be terrible. Because why would we purposefully underrate films?
We'll get on to that.
So Past Lives is directed by Celine Song, and it's about a couple who were childhood friends. And you kind of you think they're going to get together, and maybe they don't, maybe they do, and then 20 years later they're reunited. And so this is all like, it's all about their relationship and like the what if, like what would our lives would have been like if we didn't, and
if we'd have carried on. Yeah,
and I did like it. However, it was a little bit like Harry Met Sally in the without being like derivative of it, because it's obviously a really good film. It didn't work for me in terms of the characters and stuff. Like there was a specific scene when I'm not going to spoil anything, but there's a specific scene when this woman is doing something in front of the person that she's now with, and having this conversation with an old flame, and I found it so rude, and I just couldn't get past it. Like if someone would have been if my partner was with a childhood flame, and was just openly talking about them in this way, and
you'd be fuming.
Also in Korean as well, like because her husband now is Jewish, American Jewish, and he's Korean, so they're talking in Korean together, and the Jewish guy knows a little bit of Korean, but he's kind of like just sitting there with his beer while they like talk about what could have been, and I'm like, that's not very nice, man. Like, it really didn't sit well with me. So I found that kind of, I would say it probably knocked a full half a star off in terms of like how mean spirited it was. Like,
okay.
Anyway, people have got it up there as 9 out of 10, like 10 out of 10. Like, it's obviously a great film, and that's why I rated it. That's why I rated it appropriately. Anyway, I need to stop already. I'm on one already. Anyway, I watched loads of Christmas films. I watched Elf. Don't need to talk about that.
Cool.
Great film, except the bit where Zooey Deschanel does that singing, which is I just find completely egregious. But anyway, like, very funny. I then watched the greatest Christmas film of all time, Home Alone, which we've covered last year on the pod, so go back and listen to that. We've got a big, fat back catalogue for you now. Yep. Right now, listen, I'm going to tell you something mental. So, spent Christmas at my brother and sister's, like, down, like, elsewhere. And my brother's wife was like, have you seen Home Sweet Home Alone? And I'm like, what? She's like, Home Sweet Home Alone, the new one that came out like 2 years ago. I was like,
oh, the Disney Plus one.
I was like, no, there's only 2 Home Alone films. Like, there's literally only 2 Home Alone films, because I would refuse to acknowledge the rest. Anyway, she's like, no, trust me, it's really good. And I was like, whatever, like, put it on then. And I tell you what, mate, as a person who loves Home Alone 1 and 2 and refuses to acknowledge that there are any sequels related to that franchise, it was all right. It was nowhere near as bad as everyone says. I found Archie Yates, who plays, and it's not a remake. It's just a
different family, a different family.
Yeah. He's really charming. He's really charming. And it was all right. Like, I mean, do I have time to fit that in amongst Home Alone 1 and 2 when I'm watching all these Christmas films at Christmas? No. So I maybe wouldn't watch it again, but I wouldn't turn it off if it was on, because it was perfectly fine. Like, there was, I seen it and it was like 1-star ratings everywhere. So I was like, this is going to be terrible, isn't it? But we shouldn't listen to loads of people's opinions on
because
things.
You can only love or hate something now, Jamie. Nuanced argument isn't a thing. Like, you either love it or you hate it, and there's no in the middle. And you can't say 6 or 7 out of 10. It has to be either a 10 or 1.
Or a 1.
Nothing in between. Okay,
nothing.
Just so we're clear for the rest of this episode. Just lay my stall out now.
There we go. Oh God, people are going to be turning off. We've had enough of these already. Anyway, I then watched The Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
Oh, cool. Is that the digital animated one or the
Jim
Carrey
is
one?
Jim Carrey one, yeah.
Oh right, sorry, yeah.
I find it like I like it. It's wild. Like, I find it just so.
It's quite creepy at points, that film.
Nightmarishly wild. Yeah.
Especially
definitely.
when he's like a baby. You know, when he's like the little kid at the school.
Yeah,
he's quite creepy in that outfit. But anyway, yeah,
it's good. Then had like some really properly nostalgic times, right? And I got really drunk on Christmas Day, which is really unlike me, but that's what happens when you drink in your Movies in a Podshell beers. And you had some red wine. Anyway, I put on Neverending Story, which is a childhood favourite. Brilliant.
Harrowing.
Definitely harrowing.
I still have like images from that film burn into my brain of like dying creatures, etc., and terrifying bad guys. We won't go into it because we'll probably end up covering it in the pod at some point, but
we will definitely.
It is genuinely quite terrifying at points.
It's a childhood favourite for me. Like, I really love it. And then, do you know what? We rounded off Christmas Day with Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory from 1971.
I was going to say, which one? Yeah, cool.
The
good one.
Again,
also, weirdly terrifying. There's a few sequences in that film, like the boat.
There's no lonely way of knowing which direction we are going. Like, really scary.
I'm not going to lie. I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing the Timothée Chalamet one as well, which may be an unpopular opinion, but I think it looks good fun. And it's also from the director of Paddington 1 and 2, which I actually enjoy. So
yeah.
Why not?
Well, look, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, for me, I think it is a perfect film, like perfect adaptation. Like, I think that Gene Wilder is incredible. Heard something really interesting the other day, that the part at the beginning when and also I did forget bits of it as well. Like, I tell you what, it gave me such incredible nostalgia. Like, it it really brought me a lot of joy on Christmas Day. I was watching it and I was like, this is so magical, and the songs are so memorable, and I've got a golden ticket.
I literally was just about to say it. So, oh god, yeah, we won't go into it. But Jamie does like singing "I've Got a Golden Ticket," and it sticks in my head.
Tell you what, it's one of my favorite songs to sing. I was invited to a wedding I didn't really want to go to. This is terrible, by the way, and not from one of my friends. I was invited to a wedding I didn't really want to go to, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to go in. I'm gonna have to show my face and take one for the team. I'm like, and the reason is right. Weddings are really expensive for people, and they're really expensive for people to attend. So like, I'm there, like me, putting myself out and being honest and being like, you should not invite me because I don't want to be there. Like, and it's probably £100 a head, and there's someone else in your life, I promise you, that would prefer to be there. And then what happened was, I got invited to one of my best friend's stag do's on the day of that wedding, and so I was running around the house very much like, I've got a golden ticket. I sounded like a terrible person, but ridiculous.
And sang it on repeat on PlayStation Online to a group of friends for about a good hour on and off. Just to clarify. Well, anyway, that sounds like some good Christmas film watching.
It was, yeah. Oh, sorry, the Gene Wilder thing. Apparently he said that unless he was allowed to come out of the Wonka factory at the beginning and do that weird like when he's limping, and then he does that forward roll, he's like, I don't want to play the character. He's like, let me play it the way I want to play it. And I just think he's sensational in it. The songs are fantastic. Like, it's just brilliant. And then there's one more film I do want to talk about. Well, two real quick. Three real quick. I'm so sorry. So there's a film that I watched called Morning Departure. Now, Vicky, my partner, her dad, we were at the pub, like just having a drink, doing a pub quiz or whatever. He was talking about these, like, we talk about films often and stuff, and he talks about all the films in the 50s and 60s that he watched, and I was like questioning him about them because I've not really seen loads, and he was saying about all the submarine films that would come out at the time, and he was talking about this film. He's like, it definitely starred Sam Kidd, like this actor who's like a B-movie actor back then. Not B-movie, but like a B-lister. Like he was in everything, but he never had like full parts. And we were looking for this film for ages, right? We finally found it. It didn't star Sam Kidd, so he literally wasn't even in the film. The film was called Morning Departure from 1950, and I bought it on DVD because I'm like, we have to watch this. It was only logged by 181 people on Letterboxd. Bearing in mind, something like Parasite is logged by like 13 million. It's now got 182 people that logged it because I was that 182nd person. Listen, it's brilliant. The writing's great. It's basically about it's a disaster film when these crew go down on the submarine and they get trapped on the seafloor, and it's about them getting up to the top and how they're going to do that, and they've only got a limited amount of suits, blah blah blah. 90 minutes, 86. The writing's great. Like, as we say all the time, it's got Richard Attenborough in it, like as a really young lad. John Mills. I say I'd really recommend it. It's literally not available anywhere unless you buy the DVD. It's just not available. So I watched that, and it was brilliant. And that led me to believe again, like, not believe, but think about again. You know, imagine how many films are just lost in translation or lost forever.
Lost because they're not bought up by streaming platforms for having known IP or name or
that. And like there was a really good thing that I seen a little while ago. I can't remember who shared it, but it said like the amount of films on each platform, and it was like Apple Plus 60 films because they've got a very curated small catalog of films, which is fine. Then it was like Disney, Paramount. Then it was Netflix with like, I want to say like 8,000 films or 4,000 films. Then it had Prime with like 8,000, and then it had Blu-ray and DVD 25,000.
Well, yeah, because
then VHS vastly increased. So the amount of films that are just lost is crazy. You know. So yeah. Anyway, that was that. Another film I just really like to talk about would be How to Have Sex. So 2023 film. It's just come on Mubi. It's about. It's directed by Molly Manning Walker.
Maybe
again,
don't say too much because I quite wanted to watch that. So
No, I
maybe
won't.
we do a pod.
Okay,
Potentially,
yeah,
but
sounds good.
we'll
So
sort.
it's about just basically about three British teenage girls that go on a holiday to somewhere like Magaluf. I think it is Magaluf, and it's just about their experiences on that holiday. And
It looks good.
It's really good, and it's kind of it shows it's a really true to life, I think, depiction of what teens are like, or and probably what happens to young women, that kind of thing. Really good. So I would highly recommend that. That's on Mubi, so seek that out. And then I watched the last one. I'm yet to finish it. I've got like 40 minutes left. The Creator, shot on the Sony FX camera.
3.
Huh?
FX3.
Sorry, the Sony FX3, owned by John. I tell you what, that camera's big time. I can see why you bought it.
Yeah, I mean, did you know the cinematographer of that film gets really frustrated when people only talk about the camera and completely ignore all the lighting, all the lenses, or like all the stage choreography and like everything that has to happen. Like you can good lighting and good art direction is a massive part, and staging is a huge part of filmography. You could shoot like Tarantino could shoot on a Canon 600D from 10 years ago and make it look good with the right people on set. Like he genuinely could.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I picked Tarantino when he hates digital, but anyway, he still could. But if you have a amazing camera, but you don't have the locations or the know-how or crap lighting, trust me, you can make it look really bad. Like, it's possible. So, but yeah, no, I'm also...
You give a Sony FX3 to a monkey, it's still a monkey, you know? Like, clicking the clicker.
I am looking forward to the idea of watching The Creator, though. I missed it at the cinema, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And yeah,
it's pretty good. Like it's got some interesting ideas, and it's again like I say, like
I like the director too. I liked Rogue One, so
yeah,
and Godzilla,
right. Yeah, and what Godzilla? Yes, that same director was actually. We're going to talk about Godzilla Minus One. That same director said he was sitting in the cinema watching Godzilla Minus One and was jealous. And wishes it was the film he made. Yeah. Anyway, John, is probably. Oh, did you know it's J.R. Tolkien's birthday today?
No.
The day of recording.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday to J.R. Tolkien, who so many people have ripped off over the years. Anyway,
I watched a few films at Christmas. I'm just completely bypassing you on this.
What have you watched?
Chicken Run 2.
Oh, Dawn of the Nugs.
It wasn't that great. Sorry, guys.
No, okay.
No, I was disappointed. I like Aardman. I like seeing that style. It's cool to see that the art form itself, I think, should be respected, and I like that. I didn't really know what I expected from it, but the first one in my eyes is a classic. It's from my childhood, and it's not really for me now. I imagine if my child was older and would probably enjoy it a lot more, and I'd probably see it through their eyes, but we're not there yet. So yeah, it was fine, and there's been a recast on the voices and stuff, and I know some people are upset, but it's what it is. Yep. And then Jamie will tell me off, but we of course had some of our annual Harry Potter rewatch. So Chamber of Secrets was the select one this year.
Oh, we'll take the lot, thanks.
Happy days. And I had another film. It's completely gone out of my brain.
Oh yeah. No, I don't actually know what it was. No, you didn't tell me.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. Look, I'm excited this week, but I also feel like there's some opinions to be had. I believe this week we've seen a good film. Well, not just this week. We're reviewing a good film and a great film. Now, the great film, I would say, is The Second Day. But due to the popularity and due to the amount of discourse going around at the moment, we're going to start with Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon.
When I found you in the wreckage of that ship, I considered leaving you. I was afraid you could bring trouble to us. What do you think they want?
Everything. So this 1 out of 10 trashed a piece. What did you? So Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. I've only watched it last night. My expectations.
I've watched it twice, by the way, because
Go on, son.
I was so
Go on,
trying
I've done
to...
my research. No one's going to tell me nothing.
No, I just... It's one of those where I'd read so many negative things after I'd watched it. I really wanted to see if I thought differently afterwards. But hear me out.
Should we talk about a synopsis before you...
Let's do a synopsis, because otherwise it's going to get derailed very fast. Synopsis for us. Tell me about Cora's story.
When a peaceful settlement on the edge of a distant moon finds itself threatened by the armies of a tyrannical ruling force, Cora, played by Sophia Boutella, a mysterious stranger living among the villagers, becomes their best hope for survival. Tasked with finding trained fighters who will unite with her in making an impossible stand against the mother world, Cora assembles a small band of warriors, outsiders, insurgents, peasants, orphans of war from different worlds who share a common need for redemption and revenge. As the shadow of an entire realm bears down on the unlikeliest of moons, a battle over the fate of a galaxy is waged, and in the process, a new army of heroes is born.
Can we be clear before we go any further, which is, I don't think this is a perfect film, but it sure as hell is not a 1-star film. Just going to lay my stall out right there.
No, it's got a lot of problems. Yeah, it's got a lot of problems.
It's got problems, and I've got issues, which I'm happy to address, but I am not going to sit here and join this weird bandwagon which has been going on of 1-star, 2-star. I'd love to show some people some proper 1-star films. Like, genuinely.
I'm telling you now, no offense, but like, you obviously haven't seen Microwave Massacre, you know? Because what, like, I just want to say, like, are the people, the 1-star, so this is really bad, like, so I really got on my high horse about this. A 1-star, if you're going to give this a 1-star film, right, you are admitting or saying that this film is the same quality as Troll 2 or Microwave Massacre or The Room. That's what you're saying. You're saying you would have to be saying that every single aspect of this film is awful or to the worst degree. And I am saying, I know that is a apparently subjective opinion, but it is wrong. Like it is wrong. Like
even if you take everything out of it, if you just went solely and said, like, you're going to ignore all the characters, ignore everything, but you're just going to go off production value of this film, and you're rating it out of 10, it would at least be a 6. Even if you ignored everything else. And like, people tell me off for this and disagree, but like, I've watched all forms of films and production values from low to high, and this has problems. Like, I'm not trying to say otherwise, but I'll be honest, I'm going to say it. I enjoyed it. God help me. I look forward to the comments. But I enjoyed this film. I think it was genuinely trying to do something new. And before you bash me with the things that it's ripped off, I'm going to go into more detail about how basically everything you've ever loved and ever enjoyed watching is ripped off from something else. Because people seem to have this sudden, like, this is like this. And it's like, yeah, so's everything. Right. Star Wars this was a failed pitch for a Star Wars movie back in 2012, was it not? And Snyder had this idea, and he wanted to make a more adult-based science fiction, series. Now, he's been partnered up with Netflix, and people are moaning about Netflix being greedy and all this kind of stuff. That's not Snyder's fault. They've offered him the budget to go and make a film. He's going to go and make that project. He's not been able to sell Rebel Moon elsewhere. Netflix are going for it. It is what it is. So, people, I think, are annoyed about this film because of the comparisons to Star Wars. I wish he never said it was a failed pitch for Star Wars. I think that's setting it up to fail instantly, because you're actually aggravating two camps. There's the people who hate Disney Star Wars anyway, and are just like, hate anything to do with that. And there's people who love Star Wars who are like, I'm glad this is not involved with this. Do you know what I mean? It's like hitting two different types of people straight away, or two different opinions on straight away. In terms of the first Star Wars, A New Hope, is a classic film in many respects. But one of the things labelled at this film is, oh, the dialogue's really poor, or it's like, oh, it's too like plot and expositionary or whatever. Have you watched Star Wars, A New Hope? The dialogue is trash. Like, I love that film.
By the way, John,
I love Star Wars.
Biggest Star Wars fan. Biggest.
And like, this is me, like, full honesty.
I'm surprised you said that.
It's here. It's got trash dialogue at multiple points. Like, you know, Mark Hamill used to make the joke of you can type that shit, George, but you can't deliver it. It's just nonsense. Like, it was notorious that it had poor dialogue. Now, people were complaining this film, it's so solemn and takes itself seriously. I don't think the dialogue is anywhere near as poor as in the first Star Wars. I would argue. I think it's sometimes on the nose.
I think the dialogue.
Don't get me wrong. There's well written parts of Star Wars. Don't take this as like John's giving Star Wars 1 star. Star Wars for me is probably a 9, if not a 10, because I do think it's pretty much a perfect film. But it still has things that aren't perfect.
Rebel Moon has better writing. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
You're playing devil's advocate. No, I think the characters speak in a more realistic manner. I don't think you get as much of the weird exposition dumps. Yeah. Personally. Maybe like, this is a wild take. I can already see like the comments going.
No. It's.
But look. All I'm saying is, so I've watched it twice now, and the first time I thought, yeah, there are some scenes where it's quite exposition heavy, but it never felt like cheesy. And the second time round, I never felt like it has that. You know, I'm going to Toshi Station to pick up some power converters from Star Wars, or like that kind of like. It did. I think Star Wars gets away with it because it's, one, it was filmed in the 70s, and two, it's got that high energy and fast pace, whilst Rebel Moon is a slower burn. And I think that might be some of the things people take issue with.
I don't think Rebel Moon was a slow burn. I did think actually the script was its weakest point. Like so for me, the Rebel Moon, I found the script to be quite hokey, quite cheesy. There was some like really nice moments as well. Like, it's weird because like you have like there's a lot of issues with it, and there's bits where it's like Cora has this bit where she's like, happiness that I don't deserve, I'm a child of war.
See, I don't mind that. So
to
like,
truly love and be loved, I don't think I'm capable of either.
Okay,
but then she carries on.
Yeah,
it
goes
a
that
little bit
too
cheesier.
Far. Yeah,
and I was like, that would have been quite profound, but now it's quite cheesy. Or then
it could have been doing stripped back at a level. I think that's fair. And again, I'm not against criticism of this, but someone made it sound like it was like a student art film, kind of like the worst dialogue ever written. I'm just like, I've written one of those things, by the way, when I was at student uni. Yeah. Trust me, the dialogue was crap. But like, it's nowhere near that. It's just I think my frustration is like, well, we'll get back to it, because I'm not even talking about the plot properly yet, and I will go back and properly run through the plot and talk about what actually happens. Because I know we've done a synopsis, but I know we're not doing a play-by-play, but we probably need to get a bit into it.
Oh, but we are also not spoiling it, so this is a spoiler-free review of the film. So we're not gonna spoil it, but we're gonna just talk about the. Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Well, we can talk about like what. By the way, let's just bring the mood back up. Have you seen this bad boy? The reason why I'm wearing my Movies in a Podshell t-shirt is just to show you that they're still on sale. It's not because I'm that far up my own arse, okay? So that's why. Look at it. Look how. Do you know what? I forgot it was even on because it's so comfy.
Right,
it's so comfy. Anyway, sorry, what you're saying.
Before we get distracted, my issue is I don't mind constructive criticism, but what I've seen recently has been outright bashing. So I'm going to address some of the feedback and criticism, which I think is unfair, and explain some things. So I love Star Wars. We've established this, but Star Wars is essentially ripping off the best ideas of Seven Samurai, Dune, and Flash Gordon. George Lucas wanted to make a Flash Gordon film. He couldn't buy the rights, so he made his idea, which was Star Wars. Now, at the time, I think people were upset and started slagging off Star Wars as a Flash Gordon ripoff, which is hilarious now because no one probably even thinks about Flash Gordon in the same breath of it. But we are where we are. I also love a TV show called Battlestar Galactica. The entire conception of that program, it was actually originally supposed to be called not Star Wars, it was Star Mission or something, but it sounded so close to it. They were like, no, we can't do that. It had the special effects the special effects team from Star Wars working on it. The model designs were pretty damn similar. It was literally a complete rip-off. And it ended up spawning in the modern version, where they twist the idea, one of the greatest science fiction shows of all time, political dramas. It's absolutely fantastic. So just trying to sow the seed here of something can copy something and then end up being a really good thing on its own and like have, inspiration from elements. I also love Star Trek. I don't try not to talk about it too much on the pod because it's too nerdy and no one cares. But Star Trek has a show called Deep Space Nine. Deep Space Nine was a rip-off of another science fiction show called Babylon 5. Babylon 5 was about a space station where all these alien races who didn't get on, and there was this idea of like a civil war might be coming, a Cold War was happening, yada, yada, yada. And then essentially Star Trek were like, yeah, we like that. That's on Channel 5. It gets no views. We'll do it in Star Trek land. We'll make tons more money. And guess what they did? And they ripped it off. So trying to level this whole Zack Snyder is a hack who has robbed all these elements. Like, I don't think he's done it any more so than any person's ever done. And by the way, when people start talking about the character traits of saying, I forgot his name, Charlie, what's his name's characters like Han Solo. It's like, yeah, but the rugged character of Han Solo was based on, you have like your stereotypes in fantasy, right? You have swashbuckling hero who's like the reckless one. You have the Prince Charming. You have the wizard who's Obi-Wan.
In everything really, like but Power Rangers was the same. Like, do you know what I mean?
But there's there's literally a whole thing of like in storytelling there's a belief, and this was in media studies, that there's only 7 plot points,
stories,
right? And they're done over and over. So when people suddenly start saying like that's like that, it's like, well, I don't know if this whole it's a failed Star Wars script has made that comparison worse. I think it's elevated it. I think that is a thing. So that's that bit put to the side. In terms of, I think, what's fair criticism of this film, and things I will take on board, I think the score is way too close to Justice League. Steel. So it's and Man of Steel. Well, more so Justice League, but it's Tom Holkenberg, also formerly known as Junkie XL. I like his stuff, but it's less melodic and more drums and percussion, which means very quickly it can sound very similar. So I am a big fan of Zack Snyder's Justice League. I'm not going to shy away from that. We did a whole episode on it. I'm an apologist for it, and gladly so. So I feel like it did feel tonally a bit too similar to that, and that frustrated me. And what I would also say in terms of that is the Snyder cut was essentially 4 hours, which is insane, which is absolutely insane. But do you know what? Because it was released on HBO Max, it could be, and no one cared, which is why I don't understand why Netflix have released a theatrical cut, a bloodless theatrical cut, on the promise of, oh, by the way, in 2-3 months' time we're releasing the bloodied up adult version, and by the way, there's a load more backstory for these characters, because one of the main complaints people are coming in with is the lack of backstory for certain characters. The beauty of Netflix is you can watch this at home. No one cares if a film's 4 hours. They binge watch a show 4 episodes in a row. No problem.
Well, even if it was a show, so like if it was a, do you know, if a miniseries, like it would have been the same thing.
So I'm just trying to say it's not Snyder's working for a platform, and I'll call it like Netflix is a different art form essentially, in the sense of it can do what it wants. It could release a 5-hour. It could literally do anything with it.
Yeah.
So it is frustrating that they've chosen, like, he's got big ideas, and like there is a fair criticism is why can't he fit narrative structures to be tighter in a 2.5-hour film? I think that is a fair criticism you can level at this, is why can't it be a cohesive, smaller narrative? But I also think, hold on, if you've got the broad strokes of a platform where you can do anything at any length anyway, and you know you've got a fan base who are really into this content and will have the longer stuff, just release that straight away. Because all Netflix want from it, and I'm aware of this, is they want me to rewatch it. And I'm going to, because I'm a mug. I will rewatch it. I'll watch the director's cut. And
I think so will all the haters as well. All the haters will rewatch it as well. They'll hate watch it.
I don't know if they will.
So
I don't know if they will.
So they can give it half a star again.
But anyway, that's my fair criticism gripes with it. And other thing I will say is the film starts, so we will go into this. This is not spoilers, but the initial setup for the film is it gives you, in Star Wars, you've got the opening scroll or crawl. So this film decides not to do that and not to do a Blade Runner, which is text at the start. It decides to go with a voiceover. So people instantly go, oh, voiceover to start a film? That's rubbish. Don't like that. Like, if you've got to explain your lore, it's like, hold on. This is
Lord of the Rings does that.
Peter
Jackson's Lord of the Rings does that.
But before we even delve into poking that bear, it's a brand new IP trying to establish its lore. And I don't think it's getting credit enough, because people are talking about all the things it's homaging, but actually it's setting up a new lore for a new universe. And if you like it or not, fair enough. But it is trying to be a new IP. And I do think it should have some element of respect for that, because each planet's completely different. There's lots of different races. I feel like it's trying to do different things. And some criticism said the world's more interesting than the film. And
I can meet you halfway on that one. I think that's fair at points, but I still don't think narratively it's anywhere near as bad as people make out. While I've thought of it as well, if this was directed by J.J. Abrams about 10 years ago, people would have buzzed off this. And I'll tell you why I say that. When Star Trek 2009 came out, it was a complete Star Wars ripoff. They made Chris Pine look at the Enterprise as if he was looking up at the two suns like Luke Skywalker and yada, yada, yada. And no one batters an eyelid because everyone loved J.J. Abrams. He was on the up. He was on the up and everyone loved him. And like Star Trek was being revitalised, blah, blah, blah. But basically they made Star Trek Star Wars, which a lot of Star Trek fans hated, by the way. But by the by, I think a lot of this feedback and a lot of this abuse is because of the name attached to it, and that also frustrates me because if Zack Snyder tomorrow said he was never making any more films and TV shows again, I think it would be a massive blow to the industry. I don't care what anybody says. He has a guaranteed fan base, he has a visual flair and artistic style, which is so much more interesting than 90% of the crap that comes out. And I know there's people who've reviewed Anton the Wasp Quantumania ahead of this, or just drivel terrible Marvel films which come out in the past 2 years, and I'm just sorry, I can't buy it.
Did you know that even
Jamie
the worst Marvel
today.
Did you know that even the worst
God.
Marvel films are actually pretty decent films? So even the likes of Thor: Dark World is like pretty decent film. Anyway,
so sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but back onto fair constructive criticism. I think the opening of the film with that voiceover, basically you find out that the Imperium are going around and all conquering, and there's a king and queen, and then an incident happens where they are killed by rebels, and then it starts making other planets think that they could stand up to stop this evil empire, whatever you want to call it. They're going around. By the way, evil empires weren't new when they were in Star Wars. They existed in other science fiction properties before, so I'm just going to educate you on that one. Anyway, what they do is that the voiceover is done by Anthony Hopkins. We find out Anthony Hopkins is the robot character.
I've had a criticism, by the way.
Yeah.
So a criticism that Anthony Hopkins voices the robot, and also a criticism that the robot's called Jimmy. I feel like that's clutching at straws, really, because guess what? If it wasn't Anthony Hopkins, it would have been either Ian McKellen, Sir Patrick Stewart, Liam Neeson, Morgan Freeman, and Anthony Daniels, who are all considered to play the robot until Anthony Hopkins was chipped. I don't see the problem. What's
any issue with that. But
what's wrong with the robot being called Jimmy?
Well, I'm ignoring that because I think it's complete BS. But anyway, I'm so trying hard not to swear this episode. So with Jimmy, we revealed to Jimmy later in the film, we find out they're robots which protected the king and queen, but once the rebellion went against them, they decided to put down their arms, they would fight no more. I feel like the reason I love Man of Steel is because that intro is so bloody tight. You wake up, you're on Krypton, the dinosaur dragon roars, and then you see the sunsets, and then
you know exactly what's going on.
And it's like 15 minutes of pure action. Jeez, what the hell's going on?
I will find him.
I will find it. All that point. And it's so brilliantly executed. This film starts with talking voiceover, slow and drab. And I think it's very fair criticism to say, why couldn't we see the assassination on the king and queen? Why couldn't we see Jimmy lay down his arms and have the voiceover after that? That's the way I would change the film. I think it would stop this whole kind of people being annoyed at the narrator straight away. It would drop you in. You'd have that opening sequence, and then the voiceover would contextualise it. Do you know what? That scene might even exist in the director's cut, and this is the annoying thing about recording this now and not knowing what's going to come later. When we're introduced to Cora, I think the things the film does well, I love the whole section from the first landing, and you kind of get that Inglourious Bastards kind of, the Nazis have come to the village.
Sure.
And, they're coming to take everything and ruin it. So Cora's on the planet, which is... it's a what do you call it, like a farming community, and you get the good sequence where they say it's the day before the harvest, and they really set the tone up of like, this is a happy place to be, like they don't have a lot, but they're away from the technology, and all is well. And then you see the ship coming in. I thought the ship design's great, by the way.
Yeah.
Maybe I thought it looked almost that Warhammer 40k kind of vibe, very industrial, but it's kind of more spherical rather than just being straight lines.
To be honest, I thought that... the one thing I do think the film's got going for it, the many things, the set design, the production design, the
incredible.
design of the aliens, very, very interesting. Love it. And it looks very Destiny 2 in some places.
Do you know what? Destiny was one of the things I was thinking of as well as Halo. And then, so once they land, we kind of get, as we said, that Inglorious Bastards kind of sequence where they're coming in and it's all about to go down. I want to say his name correctly. I believe it's Ed Skrein. Skrein.
Yeah.
I think he's brilliant. I don't care what anybody says. I
think he's my favourite in the whole film. So, yeah.
I did see a funny criticism, and I will go for this, by the way, which is he looks too much like Matthew Horn in Gavin and Stacey with, like, the outfits he's wearing. So, like Gavin and Stacey, like that 2010s kind of, well, like me back in the day, top collar done up.
I think he looked a bit like a football hooligan with his skin fade. Brilliant. He has like a skin fade. He's like a weird.
He likes Peaky Blinders. Yeah.
I think he is the best part of the film.
He carries it for me. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, brilliant.
He's basically he's the character, I think, with the very clear aim. I think we're going to find out more about his background, but also I just feel like he just chews scenery in the best possible way. And he sets the mood where, we greet you with the hug of the embrace of the slain king, right? And there's this really uncomfortable hug where the guy clearly doesn't want to, make contact with him.
Horrible, yeah.
And then, by the way, very harsh that they've hired all South African actors essentially to be the horrible military army who are trying to take over the population. I won't go into any more detail with that. But we get our first fight sequence quite early on, which is Cora protecting other villagers. We're keeping it general enough so we don't spoil.
Well, I mean,
I think it's a good fight and people hate it. But anyway,
hold on. So that bit. So we talk. So the one strange thing about it is, like, skip forward 30 seconds if you don't. It's a minor spoiler.
Go.
The one thing I did find weird was that we have a bloodless fight. All the fights are bloodless.
Correct.
And then we've got a scene of a gang rape, basically, of a woman about to get raped.
Yeah.
But then there's also like weird bits where the Atticus, who played by Ed Skrein, belts some guy across the face, which is really brutal.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I find that quite inconsistent and sanitized, and it's weird and weird.
And again, I go back to my point on platform, which is.
They can do what they want.
You can literally do what you want.
That's the whole point of being streaming, because you don't have to worry about it being an 18.
No one cares about ratings on streaming anyway. Like, no one goes and says, is this a 15 or an 18? Like, I don't care what people say. I mean, they have kid locks account. I'm aware, like, if you're a kid and whatever, like, you have those locked accounts and you can age restrict things. But look, you're on a platform where you can have all those things. Like, well, I remember when the Snyder Cut came out, it had more gore to it, didn't it? It wasn't bloodless, and it's the difference between the Whedon cut and the Snyder Cut. But anyway, that is frustrating. I won't disagree.
Sorry, carry
with
on
that.
with the story then.
But when that fight sequence for Cora, I've seen lots of people complain about it.
Why would people complain about that?
I don't know, but I'm just saying that
I thought it was great.
I think people's criticism about that, I have an idea of why it is. We're used to seeing Snyder fight sequences mainly, not solely, but mainly with superheroes. So when Superman's battering Zod or Wonder Woman, you're used to seeing slightly larger than life action. Whereas this is, I wouldn't say it's grounded, but it's more so grounded.
More realistic, yeah.
And I think people's criticism, which I think again is fair, is the greatest ever human fight Snyder's ever captured for me is Batman v Superman, Batman in the factory. I think it's absolute top tier. It's so brilliantly done, and it always made me
300.
I have seen 300, but I'm saying my personal preference, and also that factory sequence is more relatable to Cora's fight in terms of numbers and people.
Yeah.
So it's not the same as that. But also,
and
by the way,
as well, it's very brutal. Yeah.
Batman has a grappling gun in that and swings around boxes. Like, Cora's just got a gun, so get on with it. So that's that. When we get to it's clear that action has to be taken because these guys aren't going to leave this planet alone. They are going to stay here, and people need to stand up because things are happening on the planet. We're keeping it general. So you do get the sequence where they have to get off planet. And by the way, to get off planet, you probably do have to go to a spaceport, no matter what film you're in. That's going to be how it
I'd imagine
goes.
that's probably how
Just
it
to give
works.
you a clarification. You know, like if I needed to get a car and I didn't have one, I'd have to go to a motorway service station.
If you go on holiday, you've got to go to an airport. You know?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's, do you know what, Jamie? That is the better one. That's the one I should have gone with. Anyway, so...
Which service station would you choose, though, if you were to choose a service station?
I quite like Corley, sir.
Corley? I hate Corley.
What's the one Corley or Rugby, just Rugby services.
Rugby
one service station of the year, 2023.
Yeah, there we go.
That's a tangent for the
great
Brits.
service. Yes.
What great content this is for everybody.
About that.
Anyway,
to Dr. Pepper, just so you know, I'm not drunk when I'm giving Rebel Moon a solid 6.5 out of 10.
Okay. So about Cora. So Jamie said about her speech about it being a little bit too much, a little bit. I kind of thought she's just a PTSD, which she is, warrior or previous warrior. Am I spoiling?
Well, yeah, just don't go into too much. But anyway,
I feel like she has justified reasons to be the way she is.
It's a bit on the nose.
Let's keep it there. And also, there are flashbacks of her, and I can't go into too much detail about those flashbacks. I think some of the cinematography on those flashbacks is incredible. It involves snow and a battle. I think I genuinely
that's enough
think
now. That's enough.
One of the most beautiful things. But again, Snyder's mum was a painter, apparently. So apparently that's why he has such a thing about those when he slows things down to like take in the frame. And I feel like you can see that in his work.
Yeah,
and I think you love it or you hate it. And at this point, I'm here saying I think Jamie's right. I think 6.5 is probably about right, but for me, I enjoyed it a bit more. I would say a 7. But I completely understand what people don't like about his films. But I don't see how you can look at them and say, "Oh, that's ugly," or "Oh,
I understand.
It looks really bad. I don't like it." Like they don't. Like I can't get on board with that.
Well, because when you give it 1 star, you were incorrect. I don't care if it's your opinion. You're wrong. Anyway.
So we saw.
And just guess what? There's nothing you can do about it because I have this platform.
Yeah.
And then, no, I'm kidding.
When it comes to Cora and the recruitment process, I feel like there's some fair criticism of they don't have enough time necessary to introduce.
Right. Can I talk about this bit?
Yeah, go for it,
please. So this is.
Sorry, I'm riled tonight.
No, you are, and there was me thinking you were going to have to rein me in. But this is the most negative Movies in a Podshell podcast you've ever heard. I'm joking. It's not. It's going to be. It's
all good.
All we're doing is justifying. So my biggest problem with the film, by far, is the narrative of it and the next part we're going to talk about. So we're not going to talk about anything further than this. But basically, they have to. It's in the synopsis. They have to go and recruit a band of warriors from different places.
Up until that point, were you happy? Let's just start with the opening act. Everything up until that bit, I think, is pretty much spot on.
Do you know
what I was expecting and what I wanted? Apart from, as I joked, a Man of Steel intro would have been nice to kind of drop you in.
Do you know what? Yeah,
but
I'm just going to look at some. No. I'm just going to look at something real quick. I just wanted to see what I had given Alita Battle Angel because. I didn't rate it apparently.
Don't worry.
I'm sure I did. Anyway, it doesn't matter because up to that point, the bit where they go into there's a bar and a fight, blah blah blah. There's I didn't find it slow paced at all. I think there's loads of action. In actual fact, I think the film's too fast paced. My main issue with the film is that, and this is genuinely what it does, and this is why it stops the film from being great. It stops the film from being anywhere near Snyder's best. It stops the film from. It really does fall flat on its face. From this sole thing, and it's the dialogue's hammy, but it's delivered perfectly.
No more so than other science fiction properties. Was the point we were making. But
good actors, the actors are good, the performances are good. The main issue with the film is that they go from planet to planet, and I shit you not, they recruit a few warriors, and they spend on some planets less than 5 minutes, and it's almost like they turn up and like, hey, do you want to come and take on the mother world? And they're like, oh, I don't know, actually, no, do you really want to come and take them on? And they're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, right.
And so I was a bit like, oh, that's not very good. And then it kind of gets worse and worse, and it's like
that feels like that's going to be the bits that are filled out though.
That's not fair. That's
and it's not fair, and that is a fair criticism against the platform. But what I would say is, Rogue One did that too, and I don't remember people taking such issue with it. But then again, Rogue One was very divisive. Like I personally love Rogue One, so I had no.
I would say people.
For me as a science fiction fan, like, I like seeing the world, so I'll be honest, like, the characters obviously matter, but, like, I was just like, oh, cool new planet, and each one was very, like, visually distinctive. Like, you had Gladiator X planet, you had more of, like, the you do get the desert planet. Sorry, guys who like Tatooine. Other desert planets existed, i.e. the one in June. But, you know, you get to see the different worlds. I think it's absolutely fair criticism we don't get enough time with each person when they're introduced, because they kind of get in and they're put in the background.
It's ridiculous. I think that's quite ridiculous.
But I feel like, and I hope that is the thing that is changed, because if you remember pre-Snyder Cut how little screen time, I forgot the character's name, Cyborg had. He was completely shafted. He had an entire plot point. Plot, they were like, no, we'll cut that. And then the Snyder Cut literally spent 40 minutes of that journey. So I feel like I'm hoping we kind of get something similar to that in terms of giving them more to do. But in terms of, there's a sequence involving one of those people we are introduced to, which caused controversy due to the weapons she was using. So she's using swords. But they are very
like lightsabers.
They're very reminiscent to lightsabers, and
Shut up.
Yeah. Anyway,
shut up.
Whatever. I would have been happy, to be fair.
How many laser guns have you seen in every film? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Flash Gordon, by the way. But
what's the problem? Like,
yeah, it is.
Do you know what?
It is.
I just think it's like clutching at straws. I genuinely look. I pulled up something earlier that I just think is like just proof, really, and it does lead me on to a question.
Sorry, yeah, go
on. So we've had a question. Right. Is Zack Snyder held to a higher standard than other directors?
Yes.
And why, in your opinion? Put it this way, right? So on Metacritic. So first of all, we've got Rebel Moon, which on IMDb is a 5.7 out of 10.
Which isn't actually a million miles away from where it should be. I think somewhere between 6.5, I think would be fair. I personally enjoyed it more, but I can
stomach a 5.7, right?
Yeah.
But and then you've got on Letterboxd, it's a 2.1.
Nonsense.
2.1 out of 5. So we're saying it's a 4 out of 10.
No.
And I think that the people on Letterboxd, I'm on there, that are more filmy, and I would say that take more of a passion in film and yeah, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Metacritic, right? So it's currently sitting on Metacritic, I want to say at a 33. So it's a 3 out of 10 on Metacritic. But guess what? So believe this or not, which I think is crazy. So we've got Batman versus Superman sitting on Metacritic at a 44, 4 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10. We've got user score 7.3. This is critics, by the way. So critics,
I know it's a different.
Critics have given BVS 44. They've given Man of Steel, arguably is top 3 films.
I think
They've
so.
given it a 55. So it's a 5.5.
It was divisive though, wasn't it? It was divisive at the time.
Yeah, they've given 300, arguably again in his top 3, a 52. So it's a 5 out of 10. They've given Watchmen, believe it or not, a 56. Watchmen, a 56. One of the greatest comic book adaptations ever.
Watchmen is a solid. I would go as far as saying it's probably a 9 out of 10, especially the extended one. I'll die on that hill. I'm sorry. I get so frustrated because
I think critics.
Like, he's the only person I feel like you can bash. I feel like he's like a free pass. I genuinely feel like he's. I don't know what he's. I don't know if
because he's the nicest guy. He's the nicest guy.
Maybe he said something to someone in the industry a long time ago. I have no idea, but I've never seen like the amount. So let's go back to even fan reviews, and I think it's not his fault the way the Snyder Cut went down. There are some groups of fans who push too far. That's not his fault. That's not his problem. It wasn't him. He posted something. It doesn't mean the way people reacted afterwards. That's not his problem. I feel like there's a backlash on that. I don't think people were happy with that, and people like to take the piss out of it, frankly, and react to that. That's one thing. In the terms of the actual films, though, you can get on board with films or not in terms of if they speak to you or not. But we are still, and we have chatted about this. What's this? Episode 50, God knows what.
67.
Right, 67.
To be fair, you've done about 50.
But, yeah, probably with about maternity. But what I was going to say was, I'm sick, and I see this online all the time, of the whole, It's either 1 star or 5 star, and there's nothing in between. Because the truth is, this isn't top tier Snyder for me. I think it's probably top 4, top 5 for me. We're going to go through this later. But to kind of be so derivative and say it's 1 star is just nonsense. And you know it's nonsense. But you know that because, like, one, I feel like Snyder hate gets so many clicks. I feel like it's absolute bait online. Because if you like him or not, that name carries...
We're mugging ourselves off.
We are. But he carries so much weight to it. It carries so much weight to it. And I wonder if... Coming out the bat with not Army of the Dead, the first one was the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I think, like, on the whole, people liked.
Like it. No, yeah, people do
that
like
came
it.
out the bat. Then you had 300, which was such a visually distinctive film, and like some people didn't like that film, and I completely understand why they didn't like it. But
it's an
again,
absolute banger.
I don't think it's like a
300's a banger.
Film. And then you've got Watchmen.
This is Sparta, John.
And Watchmen's one of those films which seems to be getting critically reevaluated. And I stand by, I said on a podcast probably 10, 15 episodes ago that a lot of Marvel, especially from tier 4 or whatever it was, 4 onwards.
Phase 15.
4, whatever, I don't even care anymore. It's literally, if you go back and watch the failed trilogy, as it were, which wasn't allowed to be completed, it will still be looked back better in terms of filmmaking and what they were trying to say, and the fact it was leaning into the Greek mythology. I will die on that hill. I'm sorry, I won't change that opinion, because I genuinely think they are better films than a lot of the trash that came out. And people always and this is the other thing with Snyder. So in the opening of the film, there's a ship comes through and the portal looks like a vagina, right? People are saying it looks like a vagina, it's coming through. They're like, oh, Snyder trying to use imagery because he thinks it's really pretentious, and like, oh, look at me, I've got imagery in my films. It's like, even if he is putting it in for like imagery and for reasons and trying to have substance behind it, why take the piss out of it? Would you rather it just be a nothing and have nothing behind it? Like, if you don't agree or like care about those things, it is fine, but I don't see why the need to completely slate it. Like, slating someone for having ideas and themes in their film seems a bit wild to me. Like, what, you don't want any themes or any like iconography or whatever? Like, I struggle. Sorry, I am aware. I probably sound like the biggest Snyder fan, and the irony of it all is, to be completely honest, I'm really not that arsed.
No, nor am I.
I haven't watched 300 in about 10 years, but like the last time I watched it, I enjoy it. I don't think it's the best film ever. I think Watchmen's is best. I think it's the best script. I think it's the closest to being like his perfect film. But still, narratively, it's a film which takes about 4 hours to tell the story. Yeah. So there is a fair criticism, is he struggles with that shorter time frame. I think Man of Steel's the most coherent A to B narrative. I think it's his best all-rounder on that front. And then Batman v Superman, I think is bogged down. I love so many elements of it, but it is bogged down, and again needed a 3-hour plus cut to get everything in. So if we're criticising the ability to make that 2.5-hour film, I think that's fair criticism. But I also think by this point, people know he's not particularly great at that. So you're on a platform where you don't have to do that. So why have you done that? Why have you then released that? And we know why. It's streaming numbers to watch it twice. But it's just frustrating.
David Ellis writes in, and he says, I don't get the hate for Snyder, nor do we. And I love many of his films. Yeah, thanks, David. Someone's just balanced. Isn't it nice to just have balance? This is, and by the way, we say it all the time, the most honest podcast. I think we're balanced, and I don't care if people are upset with and think we're wrong, because they're wrong. David Ellis writes in, he says, I don't get the hate for Snyder, and I love many of his films. Is he a better director of material he hasn't written? Keen to hear your thoughts.
Yes, I think it's fair to say that. So Jamie said himself he felt the weakest part of this film was the dialogue, or one of the weakest parts of the film. And he has written it himself with his wife, I believe. So I think Watchmen, to my memory, he didn't write the screenplay. And
so
I think
he didn't write Watchmen, Man of Steel, or Batman vs Superman, or Dawn of the Dead. He did, however, write 300, which arguably is top 3. He wrote Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins.
That's interesting. I did not realise that. Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, that's considered to be a top 3 DC EU film, and actually, some people think it's the best.
It's a good film.
And in actual fact, when we're comparing to the DCEU, that is essentially like pointing the prettiest piece of glitter out on a piece of dog shit. So, anyway, I'm inclined to say he's a far better director than he's a writer, because I think some of the writing, when he does write, it can be. Well, I think this is a perfect example. Rebel Moon is a perfect example of that. If he actually had someone that's written the script properly, the screenplay. Sorry, I don't mean written it properly.
I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say it's a bit like Lucas with the prequels. You feel like at times it just needs another pass. It needs someone else to kind of conversationalize it or make it a bit more.
It would have been a lot better.
And I think the truth is, his writing is always very melodramatic, and I love it. It's that Shakespearean kind of everything's always the end of the world. Everything's very somber and everything's very OTT. It's very kind of like Hamlet and Macbeth vibes. It's always that kind of, everyone's somber and stoic, and I don't like it. I mean, I personally, it never bothers me. It's never something that's frustrated me, but I understand why people don't like it.
Yeah.
But let's quickly get on to something which I find interesting, and again, this is a criticism I've read, which I think is fair, but not something I personally took issue with, which is Snyder decided to shoot this film essentially pretty much all of it at f1. So to make it as bog standard clear as possible, that basically means that it's a very, very shallow depth of field. So basically, at f1, your eyes are in focus, but your nose, especially mine, because I've got a big nose, as you can see on camera, would be out of focus, and the back of my ears would probably be out of focus.
You got a lovely little button nose, mate.
It's very hard to kind of keep the focus on that, and he does it to create this kind of otherworldly, dreamy feel. Some people don't like that. It actually takes away from the immersion because it's so isolated, it kind of almost looks fake. But I feel like he shoots in such a distinctive style, and he did this with Army of the Dead, by the way. He rehoused lenses, and he's done
I've not seen that.
And he's done it with anamorphic lenses for this film.
I put anamorphic lens on here because it looked anamorphic to me, like because it had that is it bokeh effect?
It has curved edges.
Yeah.
Because the image is like originally square and it's squeezed back out, and it gets like these curves, and people like the way when light hits it, it like flares form in certain ways. So people like that style.
I love that look, by the way.
Yeah,
that's very
cool.
much the JJ Abrams.
JJ
look,
Abrams and Spielberg back in the day as well used it quite a lot.
Love that look.
I like that style, but I understand people saying, "Oh, I'm not sure about anamorphic on F1," because normally when you have an anamorphic shot, it's stopped down a bit more, so you can see more of the background, so it's not just as clear. You don't just get like one subject in focus. You might have people behind. So I think that is fair. If that would annoy you, I get that. I don't think, but then
I quite like it, and
I personally think it's just a visually distinctive thing he does. I just.
But the Batman had very similar, and everyone lauded the Batman.
Oh god, yeah, like it's Matt Reeves, and we all love Matt Reeves. And by the way, I love the Batman. I actually think it's a really good film. But
we reviewed it. Go and see how much we loved it. We loved it.
It's another case of where I think I just don't know at what point it became like, oh, we could. I wonder if it's because 300 was aimed basically at teenage boys at the time, because that was the market it was unashamedly going for.
I was a teenage boy at the time, mate, and I loved it.
I know, and I wonder if that's kind of brilliant. Pigeonholed him to being that thing, and then DC probably didn't help with that.
But the thing is, I know it's aimed at teenage boys,
but also it sells.
He's got female empowerment, female empowerment throughout all of his films.
Correct.
And so, and this is what I just find quite astounding, really, because he has like, oh, my camera's all wobbling because I'm.
Jamie's like, I spoke to Kate Reviews Films, and I said, out of curiosity, do you feel empowered by watching something like Rebel Moon? Because actually, you've got a lot of female characters who are taking the lead on situations, and they're not. It's not for the sake of talking about men every 5 minutes. It's literally just. You've got your Sigourney Weaver. I mean, it's not Alien. It's not Aliens. Don't come bashing me saying I'm saying it's as good as Aliens. I'm just saying that you've got a lead with Cora. I think Cora's a good lead. I think her
she's
her backstory's great. Her physicality is incredible.
The
fight sequences.
Ripped.
She's ripped. She's way more ripped than I am. She's shredded, and she's. I
was thinking
brilliant.
She needs to be the next Tomb Raider. Like she.
Cool.
That fight scene, I was like, oh, Lara Croft. I'm like, because she's she's so ripped and kind of athletic, and you just. Yeah, I think
you buy her backstory as well when they get into that. Again, we can't reveal. You buy the entire thing, but and I was basically saying to Kate, I feel like in this film, in general, in Snyder films, I think women are portrayed in a positive way. I think there's fair criticism for Amy Adams' character, Lois Lane's not always given the most to do in the Man of Steel and said trilogy. And I think that's fair. But in this, I feel like we've got our
heroic feminine lead who's strong and isn't relying on men, and also, you know, it's mentioned at the start there's casual relationships and it's not a big deal, and like some man's trying to tell her to marry off, and she turns around and says, well, what, like, why, like, why do I have to overcomplicate it? I'm fine with it how it is. And it's like, I sorry,
anyway,
rant.
No, it's fine. I just wanted to say a few things that I did like about the film. So I actually like the fact that the baddies are like kind of Nazi-esque, and they've got that kind of Nazi kind of emblem. I actually like that. I just think it's interesting.
Did you like the suits? The fact they're all like dusty now, so it kind of implies that they were originally like really shiny of like a better age, and then like it's decayed over time. I feel like the world is so rich, and this is something probably not got across. Like the world building itself, I feel like there's so much lore to be had here, and I completely. There is. It feels like a lived-in world, and whether you like, I would like to say something. Boom.
Yeah. So I do. Yeah, I agree with that. I would like to say something. So really interesting thing. We're going to talk about budgets as well, because this is really important. So. Because the film we're about to talk about is very low budget and looks incredible.
Yep.
This was made for $166 million, right?
Both of them were, though.
Both of them were, yes. So in actual fact, that's 83 million each, right? 83 million each for two films is not that bad. And it looks absolutely stunning. I think most of the budget, I can see where the budget was saved. So another small criticism where I'd be like, right, I can see where they've saved budget here. Mm-hmm. And that would be that when they are going to lots of different places and lots of different planets, you don't really get to see much of the planet. It's very much like we arrive here and then we go to this place and that's it. You don't see any sprawling landscapes except the main place, the cornfields, where they actually grew the corn for real, which is, love that. They actually grew real cornfields, which is I found pretty cool. Might be a little bit of a waste of money, but you can see every single penny on screen. Like for an £83 million film that's like big budget like this, it looks like a $200 million film. You know?
Yep.
Do you agree?
Absolutely. I think it's fair to say you don't see lots of each planet, but also they only go to one location to pick people up. So I think it's hard to kind of do that, but.
It's one of the best looking. It's got some of the best looking CGI. Like
this is what Snyder does so well.
So physical. Like,
and the fact that it's interacting with water, and it's really hard because I really want to do a spoiler special, but it's difficult because I know people haven't seen it yet, so it's really hard to go much further with this. I will say though, one of my favourite fight sequences. I'm going to try and do it without spoiling it. Is they're on a planet where there is a creature which has been stealing away children, which in itself is quite a harrowing thing.
Yeah,
and there's a fight sequence involving.
So good.
I thought that was, and again, going back to your Greek mythology, that's the kind of thing when I'm reading that's what I'm imagining. I like the old Ray Harryhausen's, that vibe in a modern take, shot really well integrated CGI. Everything feels like it's got weight and physicality. So
it's some of the best CGI I've seen in a very, very long time. Like,
I'm so frustrated
out there.
Yeah. If everyone had said it's a 3 out of 5 star, or close to the IMDb, to be honest, like 6 out of 10, I probably would have
about it.
Probably none of this rant.
One of my biggest problem is like you've got very famous film critics really dragging it and like really clutching at straws. And there was a film critic that like I won't mention who it was because.
James going to get cancelled just after we spent our Riverside subscription.
I just have like high respect for them and one day would love to have them on, but basically like completely dragged the film for like 10 minutes and then to the point of where like there was a really lovely interview with the co-host and Snyder was like being the nicest. He was nice as pie, really passionate. He's just a big geek. But he's never prickly. He's always respectful, and I have a feeling that this particular critic has like a bad relationship with him because he's always smashing his films. And so Snyder's told like, right, you've got to go and do these press things, and Snyder's like turns up, nice as pie, being like, this is my film, this is why I'm passionate about it, and yes, it's a bog standard 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10 at the best, in my opinion. I think that is. We would be pushing the boundaries if we would say it was any more than that, because of the glaring issues with the script and the rushing, how it's been rushed along. We will see a director's cut. I think that's irrelevant at the moment, and I think it's I think it's wrong that that's happened. I don't like it, and it needs to stop. I think that if we're going to release a film, we just need to release it.
Release what the final thing is. I think just.
And this is what Martin Scorsese. I would say that Snyder has a lot of clout at this point.
Should do it,
and he should be allowed to do that. And so maybe Netflix. Maybe the deal was, if you have to release, because they're working on them both at the same time. That's the weird thing there.
The second one comes out in April, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So the second actual film comes out in April, not the director's cut.
Correct. So, yeah, the director's cut someplace in between. Yeah.
This is what I find strange, and that's why the original Justice League compared to the Zack Snyder
something else
cut.
I need to say as well. Like, I saw.
Would you like to? Should we finish up on that then, and then we can do questions on that?
Sorry,
film
I will then stop.
No,
someone started ranting, and like I saw 4 reviews moaning about the fact the film stopped halfway through when it clearly says at the start part 1. And when people saw Dune, did you hear anybody have the same complaint? Now, I don't think it's as good as Dune, and I'm not trying to pretend it is.
It's nowhere near as good as Dune.
No, it's not, and that's fine. I don't need everything to be Dune. Like, this is sci-fi opera. It's going back to that Flash Gordon vibe of like the dialogue in those things was quite cheesy and melodramatic. I know Snyder likes that more melodramatic style. That's all by the by. But this whole thing where people are like, it stops halfway through. It's like, it starts with part 1. And by the way, the end of Dune, for all the things I like about Dune, it doesn't finish any more satisfactorily. That's not even a word. It doesn't give me any more satisfaction with the way it ends than this does.
Nor does any of the Lord of the Rings films. The Lord of the Rings ends
Lord of the Rings 1 is just
abruptly.
like, you know, about to go, well,
I remember
that's fine.
Yeah.
That's what happens with trilogy films or sequel films, and it is what it is. But again, it's being hit at this as if it's like the bastard child the first time it's ever happened. I'm just
the only thing I would say,
don't get it.
The only thing I would say is I would say the closest thing to Rebel Moon in terms of like tone and scope would be something like Dune, which did have double the budget, directed by David Villeneuve, who's a far more accomplished and better director in my opinion. And I would say that if I was going to if someone wanted to watch something like this, I would direct them towards Dune, because that's something that Villeneuve does give us, like proper scale. He shows scale more than any other director. Like it's incredible, really. And
this for me is a comic book film. It's a science fiction comic book film. I feel like that's the way I went into it as. If I go to Forbidden Planet and I'm looking through a sci-fi comic, like this is kind of what it is, and that's exactly what I expect from Snyder. And
yeah. Well, look, let's just finish up on some questions. No, you're all right. John, this is your podcast.
It's really funny though, because I know in the comments people are like, "Oh, like you said, the dialogue in Star Wars was really bad." It's like the dialogue in New Hope is bad, and like it has a lot of amazing performances.
That's why it's the worst.
You hate New Hope. Do you remember when you were like, "I hate the first 40 minutes of New Hope"? Do you remember? Literally, when we were at uni, I used to say, "Like, let's watch New Hope," and you just wouldn't do it. I'm all right.
So I was going to say famously, but not famously at all. Maybe one day. I think that New Hope is the worst out of the first trilogy. I think it goes A New Hope, then Return of the Jedi, then Empire Strikes Back, and I just think that I don't know, something about A New Hope that I just think I just
you found it boring. I remember you used to say you just found it boring. But anyway,
and do you know what? I still do now. Anyway, that's not what
I'm not throwing you under the bus with that, by the way. I just trying to give context.
You're trying to deflect. You're trying to deflect your A New Hope dialogue comments off on me. Do you know what? I reckon from there on out, no one's taking you seriously.
They're like, we don't want John. Get John to have another baby. We don't need him back anymore. He's got terrible opinions.
You're getting messages about that. Right. Let's have a look then. Kate Reviews Films writes in. She says, "Favorite Rebel Moon character and person you're most excited to spend more time with." Right, and if you've got to look for the names of the characters, John, that might mean it's badly written. Right.
I love the way you casually drop that. So I saw someone complain about it's so hard because we're not allowed to say spoilers. Okay, no spoilers. Fine. Okay, no spoilers from the characters that we know off the bat. Like, Cora's obviously gonna we're gonna see more of her backstory and her arc.
Yeah.
I like Cora. I see people calling her someone said she was a charisma vacuum. I didn't agree, but whatever, we are where we are. Atticus is my favourite space Hitler. In terms of
bring more Atticus. I want Atticus.
I just want to watch him tear it up, because literally he's just like in science fiction you just need a bad guy you absolutely hate and have no time for, and I absolutely hate him, and I
hate him.
looking forward to seeing him in his Tommy Hilfiger suit.
Yeah,
all of it. It's I
hate his skin fade. I hated the tattoo under his eye. I want to smash his face in, and that's why he's good.
You need that, don't you? You know what? You need to
like
see them and know I'm against them.
You know how Marvel owned Disney owned
Marvel,
Star Trek now. Well, they do Disney owned Star Wars. Bloody hell, what's wrong with me? Disney owned Star Wars now, and you know how they do just the Darth Vader comic.
Yeah. Just do this guy.
I want to see. I just want to see him.
Okay,
I want to see him just going around.
I have a genuine question then, and this is not planned in. If this was a Star Wars property, and it hadn't got Zack Snyder's nail on it, how do you think it would fare? Because I genuinely believe if it had a lightsaber in it,
it does. Apparently, it does.
If it had and the Empire and whatever, I reckon people's would not even notice the dialogue of it, having watched most of the Star Wars TV shows of recent years, including Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Mandalorian Season 3. I genuinely feel like it would be probably rated at least a 7 out of 10.
I think, yeah. So I think it would sit somewhere.
Just saying.
Just saying. Again. The biggest problem I have is how it rushes through the middle third. It's so rushed and it does not feel good.
But
it doesn't feel good. But everything in between's great.
I get
Enjoy.
that. But
enjoy.
Do you think if it was the Disney IP,
Mate, I think if it had
Star Wars,
I think if it had an A24 logo directed by Alex Garland, who directed Annihilation, people would be like, "Oh, it's so profound. It's got such big ideas. It's so ambitious."
Yeah.
That's what people would say. It'd be like, "A24 have done it again. They've made another film," and they probably only distributed it, but they've made another film. That's what would happen. But then unfortunately, we've got to pay that Zack Snyder tax. He must be taxed. The trolls at the bridge. This is how much it costs. It costs 1 star to come across this bridge. So it's not a 2-star film. It's not a 3-star film. It's a 2-star film. 1 star to get across this bridge because the trolls. That's what we want. All right. Zack Snyder tax. Anyway,
enough. Let's get on some positive things.
I would like to spend more time with Titus, played by Jaimin Hounsou. Oh man, I've butchered that big time. But do you know what? He's the mentor in Never Back Down, the film Never Back Down, the greatest MMA sports film of all time. So
yeah,
I love him. So
my issue with that is I'm going for it. It's not a spoiler. His character, it says on his IMDb page, he's a general, but you don't see him lead an army. And
I just want to see him lead.
And people said, "Oh, isn't it rubbish that you go to general and he doesn't get to do anything with the team?" It's like, it's clear the next film is going to be all about him training up an army. Right? Or training up.
You better hope that
it is, though. There's a trailer out already. I've seen the bloody trailer. It's clear he's training them. So people are just. Yeah, anyway, it is what it is.
Anyway,
people hate it. Whatever. I liked it. I watched it twice. So. And I'm gonna watch it a third time when the director's cut comes out.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Go on.
Kilmflub writes in and he says, Barry Penis.
What?
That's
a week behind.
Yeah, I know, but
sorry.
I think he got a reaction, so he's back. Patch writes in and he says, is using overused tropes and cliches ever acceptable? Should writers always be looking to adapt into new areas or subvert those common story elements that are tried and tested? Nearly ran out of breath there.
I mean, look, there's a balance, and I feel like, I think it's fair to say that Snyder leads into a few of them too heavily in this. But again, I'll be honest, when I watched it, it didn't really bother me. I think Jamie's right on dialogue in terms of like that speech at the start from Cora goes on a bit too long, and it's a bit too much of a soliloquy than it should be. You know, we didn't need that much, but I feel like, I don't know. I'd like to see less tropey things, but to be honest, a lot of it is trying to get things across to the lowest common denominator in film. And I think when... am I wrong? Like, I feel like that's what they're trying to do. There's a sweet spot somewhere in the middle.
Unless it's Stalker. by Tarkovsky, which the lowest common denominator.
It's not for you. Should I start doing that? Should we start doing Rebel Moon? It's not for you.
Did you not see it's a 12A?
No, it's not for you. Those themes went over your head. And by the way, I'm absolutely not doing that genuinely before someone clips that up and sends it over. But anyway, yeah.
It's not for you. Anyway, I think that overused tropes and cliches. I mean, everything's been overused at this point. Indiana Jones, we've seen that used a million times. We've seen the old gunslinger come back. We've seen Lord of the Rings tropes like used a million times. We've seen
every fantasy film is like Lord of the Rings, isn't it?
So I just think that as long as it's got a good script, which this doesn't have, but as long as something's got a good script and it's acted well, and I don't know, we're going to be sitting watching the same story. Do you know what? If you want something different and profound and something like that's going to completely take you from the side, go and watch some Korean cinema. Just go and do that, because what are you expecting with Rebel Moon? Like, are you expecting it to change your life? It's not. It's a silly sci-fi film. Just try and enjoy it. I went in there with my expectations were rock bottom, and I went in there because guess what? I like films, and I wanted to enjoy them. So I'm like, I'm just here trying to enjoy films. So I spend all my life working and then all my free time doing this just so I can get loads of hate. So anyway, Patch, there you go. Don't worry about the tried and tested elements. Don't worry about subverting my expectations.
Final score on the door for this film, then. What are you ending it on? For you, and I'll give mine.
I really think that it's a struggle to give it. It's between a 6 and a 6.5, and we've said before, there's nothing wrong with a 6. Like,
that's
what
was the film?
I'd probably say it's a 6 out of 10. I'd probably say that it is a 6 out of 10. If my hand on my heart, I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I think my enjoyment was a 7, but we don't rate on enjoyment. We rate on what the film is and is it good or not. And I think there is too much rushing of the middle third, and there is the plot, the dialogue is just not good enough in places. There is one line that I really laughed out loud from, which was from the guy in the bar where he's like, "I've got a bed upstairs with relatively clean sheets." Which
yeah, he was
I
great.
realized that was what I was going to introduce you. I was like, he's got a bed upstairs with relatively clean sheets, but instead,
there we go.
I went blank because you rushed me in. But anyway, John, what are you giving it?
I think, heart of hearts, it's probably a 6. But for me personally, and my actual enjoyment and the fact I've watched it twice, and by the way, I thought it looked incredible watching it. I'm not going to lie on the no-led. I thought it looked incredible.
The physical release will look amazing.
Yeah. Well, let's bloody hope Netflix release one. But anyway,
So for me, it was a 7.
Okay.
And I'm aware, by the way, it probably should be a 6. And I've probably, to be honest, gone stubborn on the 7 because people have been so crap on the other side about it.
Yeah, so all you're doing is bringing the 1 stars up slightly. Right, I guess we better talk about this.
Can we talk about something positive? Because I feel like we've done an hour and 20 minutes, and at least an hour of it has been us having like pent up frustration over a film that neither of us are actually as bothered about as it looks like.
Listen, how about cinema trip of the year, John? How about cinema trip of the year? We're going to talk about Godzilla Minus One from 2023, directed and written by Takeshi Yamazaki.
Godzilla Minus One.
My best cinema experience since Top Gun Maverick.
Both
of which were with Jamie. Yeah.
He's getting a divorce.
we don't have time to go to the cinema together anymore. Like it's not a thing. It's just you and I sneaking out on a Monday. That sounds weird. Anyway,
sneaking out on a Monday night. Yeah, he takes his ring off, and I put the ring on. Oh, that is a filthy, disgusting joke. Sorry, everyone.
Wow, that went south. Look, Godzilla Minus One on a budget of what?
Pepper.
15 mil?
15 million? 15 million.
How much was Upgrade on?
4.
Okay, well, still fair play to upgrade on that one.
But I would just like to say when the director Takeshi Yamazaki was spoken to about the budget, and we're like, a budget of 15 million. Like, how did you do it? He was apparently responded with 15 million. I wish I had 15 million.
Really?
Yeah. So anyway, synopsis: feeling as if he's unfairly treated, treated. I meant cheated. Feeling as if he's unfairly cheated death too many times. Shikishima, that's fun to say. That's like Elf. A surviving kamikaze pilot is attacked on Odo Island, along with many warplane engineers, by a gargantuan monster. After the engineers die due to Shikishima failing to distract the monster, an overwhelming amount of guilt weighs on him, especially after a homeless woman and a baby move into his home. When he returns, Shikishima, now on a personal mission, teams up with a large group of veterans to finally take down the monster known as Godzilla.
One of the best scores in and also I didn't realise, and this is because I'm a complete noob to Godzilla, I've seen Godzilla 98, which everyone apparently hates, and Godzilla 2015, which people also dislike. But hey,
Godzilla 98, one of the best cinema experience. Well, one of my first I can remember.
Same, I was terrified.
I got an extra large Pepsi Max, and I was probably pretty small. I drank most of it, and I went to the toilet because I was bursting. I've still got a baby bladder now, but I had probably about a litre of Pepsi Max, and I missed the bit when he grabs the taxi in his mouth and chews the taxi up. So I missed probably the best bit of the film as a kid of that age. Yeah, I was 9. Gutted.
Yeah, Godzilla. So I'm a newbie to it. I've never seen the original. I tried to find it out, but unless you're buying a physical copy of it, it's nigh on impossible to stream anywhere, by the way, which I found out. But anyway, I didn't realise that the film score was a modern interpretation of the score from the original.
Do you know? Oh,
and I love that. When they're on the boat. This film just has momentum and energy throughout. And weirdly, I went in expecting it to just be a creature feature, and it ended up being a film about survivor's guilt and PTSD post World War II, and the political things that were going on in Japan, which then happens to have Godzilla in it, which for me is completely wild, just a wild take on it, and it's all the better for it. And we're going to talk about writing and characters. This has very clearly defined arcs where you've got a kamikaze pilot. Are we doing spoilers for this or not?
We're not doing spoilers for this.
Oh,
no,
Christ.
This is going to be... No, we can't, because I don't think a lot of people have seen it, so no spoilers.
The setup for the film is a kamikaze pilot who has...
Explain what kamikaze pilot is, because a lot of people won't know.
So, in World War II, the Japanese had a squadron of fighters, or I believe, who would go and commit suicide by... Their planes would be loaded with bombs, and then they would hit targets and destroy them. And in the film, this is a pilot who hasn't fulfilled their mission. He lands at an airbase, and at the airbase, they say, we've taken a look at the plane. Nothing seems to be wrong. And around that time, it's all distracted and not worried about, because they see a creature. And at this point, we see Godzilla for the first time, but Godzilla is very small. It's nothing like what...
Little baby Zilla. He's not Godzilla.
I would say even for a baby, it's still bigger than T-Rex Jurassic Park, so it's still pretty big.
And the setup for the film is, not only has he got survivor's guilt because of the fact that he's not committed to his mission, he's then told he should help kill Godzilla, and he stumbles at the start. He basically is tasked to do something, and he cannot fulfill the task he's been given. And then the film is his journey, and without spoiling it, he kind of has a surrogate family, and it's about him coming to terms with who he is, what he did do, what he didn't do, and what his purpose is. And by the end of the film, he finds a new purpose. And what's really nice is he has a really nice supportive group of friends who see him through. And it sounds really cheesy, but it's just it's so feel good at times. Almost as mad as this sounds, I was 100% as invested in the non-Godzilla parts as the parts with Godzilla in it. And I think that is the biggest 100%. Credit to this film.
It's not a Godzilla film, so for me,
well, it is. But yeah,
no, it's not. No, it's a film about the human condition. It's a film about redemption, about overcoming grief, about relationships. It's absolutely wonderful. It's my film of the year. It is
really?
my film of the year. Absolutely. Like there's nothing else that made me feel the way that film made me feel this year. And sitting next to you, like I literally did. I had a little. I was like, had a little tear towards the end. And I did. I found it so fantastic in every single way it was executed. I was really invested in the characters. One of the criticisms of the film would be that some of the dialogue is very anime. What I would say
it
is. It's very like very like Japanese shouting anime, like kind of. And I would say that yes, it probably is. But I also think that I do think it was a conscious decision to make it like that because
it's more in keeping with the original potentially.
It's an anime. Well, I think it's an anime studio, an anime studio. That kind of was with it. The one thing I was confused at is that why a Japanese film got such a big release over here, but I think it was from an American distributor.
Didn't the previous Godzilla film also get quite an audience here though, which is the one where everyone's in boardrooms?
Shin Godzilla.
Yeah, people really liked that one, didn't they? Or
I think the Western audience likes Godzilla in general, but this film gave me. I was so excited watching it, and for me, that is what cinema is like. When I think of it, this was like for me like a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. I was so invested in every single character, and it was just about camaraderie as well. And
it was feel good, which I wasn't particularly expecting.
Was it?
Well,
it was, but it's very. I would say it's got all of those. I would say it's very well rounded,
it's got
which is
some
what
nice redemption arcs and that kind of thing for like various characters, but just. Yeah, it's what I liked is it did a really good job, and the original did this where it was the whole conception of Godzilla is the fact of like after the nuclear bomb dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, it was like Godzilla was created as almost like the fear of the atomic age, and it was like created as like a way of coping. And a way of like processing what happened. So they've created this creature which basically embodies nuclear energy in some of its origins or whatever. Sometimes it's a prehistoric creature, and displayed on film and like and shows how people react to that in Japan. And like this film goes back to that messaging and says about it starts talking about. So people in Japan initially were worried about this film on the basis of that the director being quite pro-establishment before, being very pro-government and very like they believe too complimentary about Japanese culture, while this film made a pointed effort, I believe, to kind of criticise the failings from World War II. It said, the majority of our army died because they were in famine, because they couldn't get the supplies over. There's a lot of people could only be told certain things, so people died through like lack of information. It was
criticising the kamikaze, what a kamikaze is,
and
isn't
it? The ideology behind that, and I think it goes all the way back to the samurai, and it was just a really interesting window into a world I know very little about. I do watch quite a lot of World War II documentaries, and like I know very small bits and pieces because let's be honest, history is written by the victors, and all you ever hear about is Battle of Britain and pretty much the end of World War II. So actually
seeing the destruction of the aftermath of World War II, this is the first ever Godzilla film that
depicts that properly.
It is a period piece. So seeing them like the destruction of World War II and people having nothing and
the houses
rebuilding their homes,
literally nothing,
and then Godzilla come in and basically doing it again. Like, I mean, we know. Do you know what I mean? That's not a spoiler. That's just what happens. But the one thing we should talk about is, like the budget. The budget is an interesting one because I don't know how have they done this.
So
15 million.
I believe that the director also was the visual effects supervisor because he'd done that previously. So normally on a Hollywood film, let's say a Marvel project, and people are going to get annoyed. On a Marvel project, you say, this is the animatic of what I think it will be like. And then they've got enough money to kind of go, oh, we'll change this, we'll change that, and do lots and lots and lots of different versions, different revisions.
Yeah.
My understanding is on this is they said, what we've shot is what we've got. And we are going to storyboard the hell out of it, and we are going to film only what we need. There isn't the extra because there isn't the budget for the extra. And by the way, when you look at, I've just read a behind-the-scenes book of an old Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and basically what they boarded was what they shot. They didn't have the time,
of course you
money,
did.
or budget to do anything else. It is what it is. That's what we've got. Boom, that's what we're going to get. And I think this goes back to that. And by the way, I kind of think that's how it should be, because I think so many problems are made when you're trying to add these things. They always never quite come off or look fake.
I have a question
or look
then.
naff anyway. Go on.
Kims.cinema.escape writes in, friend of the show, discuss effects quality in films in respect of their budgets. So Godzilla effects versus Hollywood blockbuster effects.
So I think we've just touched on it there, which is basically there's more of a coherent idea of what they want to do, so they've just followed through on this. They've been very particular. There's not actually loads of shots of Godzilla. There's a very good use of like when to show, when not to, when to do POV, like in Jaws, and so there's that element to it. But then when you do show them, making the most of the shots in terms of, do you remember we talked about the first Jurassic Park and shooting for scale, and the later Jurassic Park films went away from that. So essentially you're seeing it from you can always see in relation to size. So the first Pacific Rim does this really well. You see it from a human camera angle down low looking up, so you get a good sense of like how big these things are. Then in the sequel they scrapped that, and then you have, it kind of makes everything feel weightless and not as real, because you can't see it from your perspective. You see it from this kind of 3D fake camera, and your brain knows it's a fake camera because no camera could capture what it's capturing. And what the Jurassic Park did really well was do it the other way, and this is what this Godzilla film does, which is like a cameraman would be here, and we're on a boat and we're seeing behind us and there's a Godzilla. We're looking here, we're looking up, and there it's walking. That's a big thing that sells the effect. And it's such a simple thing to do, but it's ignored so often.
So a question for you then. So let's say we've got Villeneuve with an unlimited budget. Maybe not Villeneuve, but a director with an unlimited budget. So let's say just a Marvel director, or the next Hollywood, the next person that's directing Fast 15. Compared with something like this or a Lee Whannell upgrade, do you think that directors with a limited budget are more inventive with the way they do these things compared to like someone who's just like, well, we've got the money, so let's just go and make a cornfield?
Yeah, there's no decision. So like, go back to Aliens. Aliens wasn't big budget for the time. Like they used really old school effects from like the 30s and 40s, and from like really bad is it Roger Corman like horror movies? They were like the B movies and stuff.
They were bad. They were great.
Okay, but they were using those effects and doing it to the best of their abilities. James is gonna crack one out now.
No, I'm not. I'm getting a Blu-ray. I would never do that on the pod.
Here we go.
Yeah, there you go.
But my point being, they would take old school effects and just do them to the best of their ability and use them sparingly. And I feel like that's the difference now. And also, it's not always directors' fault. With Marvel, producers are really the people who run those things. The directors are like
reshooting,
they're a hired
redoing.
Hand, and sometimes they get someone in and say, "Do you know what? I don't like any of this fight. Rather than reshoot it, I'm just going to CGI the entire thing." Imagine the ending of Black Panther, shall we say? For all the things that people love about Black Panther, the end fight is terrible. And it's essentially...
Same as Shang-Chi. Shang-Chi was completely ruined. They could have been a great martial arts film, but they decided to have dragons.
But my point being is that went through constant revisions, and I don't think it would have been Ryan Coogler doing that. I think that's Marvel saying it needs to have more scale, it needs to have more space, it needs this, it needs that, and they go in, tinker. Kevin Feige's there, and they've got the budget, and they crunch it, and go. And I think with a film like this, they just didn't have that option. It's as simple as that. They don't have the time, they don't have the budget.
Instead of creating a new Raw, the crew simply played the original Godzilla Raw over speakers and recorded audio.
It. Love it.
And same as Lee Whannell's Upgrade, one of the greatest films ever made. He like repurposed a Toyota Avensis
and made it look like a
basically like a 1990s one, and just like made it look like a futuristic car. And I think
Blade Runner did that.
There's a lot. There's some cool craft that goes into like these smaller budget films. So yeah, I think we definitely have answered that. So yeah.
Just to say, in Aliens, you've got like the really cool APC that they landed, and they're in like the tank thing which lands on the planet. That was from BA. It's what used to pull planes at like 5 miles an hour, and then they just shredded all the weight off it, took it all out, and then made a lightweight version which they could have people film on. And again, it's just an idea of repurposing existing things is a lot cheaper than actually,
They're very clever in Godzilla with the way they show him, because you are right, like they do show Godzilla
sparingly enough.
Yeah, sparingly enough. There's the action scenes are absolutely.
Also, it's a
thrilling.
horror. I don't think we've actually got this across. In the start, like the first, it was properly scary. I mean,
I got a bit scared.
I did joke at the cinema, and I've become an old man. I said to Jamie, I said, "Oh, we went to see it in IMAX."
Yeah, I was going to mention
and,
this.
and I said, "Jamie, it is actually a little bit too loud. Like it's actually distorting the audio quality." And Jamie
you
was
were like, it's a bit loud, isn't it? And I was like, because we didn't see. No, it wasn't IMAX. It was Dolby, which it was about £900 a ticket.
Literally, they tried to charge £50 to get in.
Yeah, £50 for 2 tickets. I'm not
God.
even joking.
Anyway,
I'm not even going to shame them. I'll tell you what I will do though is Mockingbird Cinema in Birmingham. Such an amazing cinema. You can go £6.95. Anyway, we're not even endorsed by them, but do you know what? I'm here.
We love it, and I saw Saltburn there, so it's even close to my heart after that. But anyway, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, look,
it's a horror.
We don't. It's a horror. It's a film about the human condition. It's absolutely wonderful.
It's a very hard film not to spoil, by the way. So if we sound like we're not saying much about much, it's very difficult plot point to not talk about.
No, it's absolutely fantastic, and it was such a pleasant surprise. I knew I was going to enjoy it. But I didn't really. A film hasn't made me feel like that. Whoa. A film hasn't made me feel like that. I know. No, I'm not. No, I've had do you know what? I've still got a little bit of something. It's sad.
Yes.
There's a film's not made me feel like that in a long time. Like it was just fantastic.
It absolutely exceeded my expectations. I went in very clear that I was like, oh, Japanese Godzilla film. I imagine it will have some good set pieces, but whatever it was, actually the set pieces, by the way, are brilliant. But I wasn't really bothered about them. I was more bothered about the rest of it.
Out.
Yeah,
I was buzzing, wasn't I?
I listened to that soundtrack for a good week and a half as well.
Film Forager writes in and she says, "Did the Godzilla score give you chills?"
Yes.
In capital letters.
Without giving too many spoilers away, when they're pumping it out. No, not that bit. You know the da 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 da. When they're doing that and they're on like their maritime thing on a boat. I won't give any more away, but they're on a boat and they're having a good time and that's playing. I felt like I was at sea, like swashbuckling along with them. I thought it was great.
There's some of that. There's some like orchestral. There's some orchestral pieces. There's some bits with choirs, but there's a specific thing. Like
I'm very annoyed that it got sampled by an artist in the 90s, but there we go. Get up.
Right, I don't know that, but
you do.
Really strong way to end the episode, John.
No. Remember when we were in the cinema,
I said to you, so okay, the Godzilla theme has been sampled multiple times, but it starts with da 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 dun. Da, 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 and it got used for a 90s track, and then it was used years later by Jay-Z or someone in like a
90s track. Pretty Green Eyes. Pretty Green Eyes. I'm joking.
No, not that. But it's like some rap song. And I literally was like, oh my God, are they going to completely just needle drop a random rap song in this thing? I didn't know that was the original Godzilla theme. And I was I was really disappointed in myself when I was like, oh, okay. But it's great. I loved it. There's nothing to not like. There really isn't. I hope it comes out on physical media, not just a dodgy.
Oh, I'll be patched in it. Do you know what? I'm more passionate than ever about
doubling down
4K Blu-rays at the moment. We spoke about this the other day, so we'll just quickly talk a little bit about.
Can we just be clear on this? It's not just 4K Blu-rays. An average Blu-ray.
Let me set it up.
Oh, sorry. Okay, right now.
Sorry, John. Anyway, I was speaking to John the other day because I was like, I was looking like, as you can see, like I do collect Blu-rays, 4Ks, whatever, and for many different reasons. Some because I've been talking about this loads lately with people. We're going to talk about physical media for 5 minutes, so switch off if you want and listen to our next episode. What's the next episode going to be, John? Who knows? Hey, who knows? We might do I was going to say we might do our top films of the year. I would like to do that, but
right.
We know exactly what John's seen already. Anyway, so yeah, physical media. Yeah,
Rebel Moon's top. Spoiler.
Rebel Moon's top. Yeah.
Physical media. So, go for it.
Yeah, I was talking to people over the weekend about physical media. During the Christmas break, kind of just saying that, yeah, there's many reasons why I collect it. Like most of it's because the behind the scenes stuff.
Artwork,
higher quality, just in general. And we'll talk about the quality in a sec. John will.
Cool books.
Cool. Yeah, we've got some cool books. I've got loads of. I just love collector's editions, really. And really, like stuff like French Connection, the Gene Hackman one directed by William Friedkin. Disney have edited pieces of that film out, so that film is digitally not available to stream without it being edited now. So they've edited pieces out. So unless you have the actual Blu-ray,
the George Lucas effect.
Well, yeah. Well, they've gone in the middle of the middle of the thing and just edited pieces out. Not to mention the quality. So me and John were talking about quality of Blu-rays the other day, and I sent him a real good article because you've now got a 4K Blu-ray player as well, which is you're going to start beef up the grief. Yeah. So what? Yeah. In terms of the quality of even just a Blu-ray over streaming.
Well, look, streaming goes to the internet without being too boring. Like, it has to be able to work at low bit rates. So to get an HD stream, it needs to work at under like 15 megabits per second. But a Blu-ray's outputting like 35 megabits per second. So you're already getting that's a standard Blu-rays already, and it's not just double the quality, but like because it also is to do with the sound.
4 times,
but
four times
it's
the
like,
quality.
Yeah, it's insane, and the 4K ones are even better than that with the HDR images. But honestly, if you're umming and ahhing about whether to buy Blu-rays of things, like you should as well, because I am concerned that it's just going to eventually die off if people don't do it. But then I'm hoping it'll do a vinyl, which is vinyl died off and then came back because people got back into it. So I hope it goes full circle.
No, so actually, I will say this year has been one of the biggest years for so vinyl's a really good example. So this year vinyl has been the biggest year since like 1992.
Yep.
For vinyl sales. We're currently in a golden age of physical media. So in terms of like the things that are being released, there's so many really good labels releasing films that just have been lost for a long time. They go all out like with these special features, like they go and find directors, actors, all that kind of thing. And so Oppenheimer, really interesting. So because of Nolan saying, yeah, you must buy this, you can't let the streaming services win, you must go buy Oppenheimer on 4K, that's the way it should be watched. That sold 100,000 units, right? And I know that doesn't sound a lot, but that is
pre-release.
Loads. Yeah, that is absolutely loads of Blu-rays. And companies are making loads of profits. Did you know Universal with so for last year's figures that just come out, Universal are the highest grossing, what are they called? Production company of last year.
TV shoot.
Higher than Disney. So because they did Oppenheimer, they did what was the other massive one? Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers,
which people will buy.
Yeah. So
just to say as well, it's not just picture quality; it's actually the audio itself. Because like
audio,
the biggest difference I find when I to be fair with the picture, it depends on viewing distances. So like if you're further away from your TV and you're watching a HD stream versus the Blu-ray, there is potential you probably won't tell the difference. Depends on screen sizes or the factors. The biggest thing you'll notice is the sound. The sound on streaming, because they lower the bit rate to make it smaller, it always doesn't sound very punchy. And as soon as you get an actual Blu-ray in, I mean, do you remember when we did the preview of for Phantom Menace and that stuff? Like it's so much.
I genuinely like John. We've both invested a little bit in our. That's our thing, you know. John's got like silly size speakers. They're massive. Like compared to I've got like a bit smaller profile because they're in like my living room, where John's got like a
office.
workroom office, cinema room. So John's got like some big speakers, and they sound. I tell you what, Duel of Fates.
Yeah, Duel of Fates.
Oh my god, it just sounds unbelievable.
Before we finish up and not on the physical media chat, because I ended up watching it on iPlayer, can I just say a quick bit about the new Doctor Who?
You can go for it, mate.
I really enjoyed shooting out his first episode with Millie Gibson as Ruby Rose. I wasn't sure where I was going to be with it because I enjoyed the David Tennant specials, actually. I felt like well, I hate to say it was a bit nostalgia baity. It was a bit remember with David Tennant, and I was kind of going on the merry road. Being like, I remember when I was in year 9 and thought this was great. Cool. Yeah. And I admit I was very much on that trail, but I really enjoyed it. And I thought the first episode was really good. I feel like it needed I feel like it's gone back to the simplicity of like when it was first rebooted, which is Ruby Rose is very similar to Rose, as in Millie Gibson's character is very similar to like Billie Piper's Rose, but I feel like that's on purpose, and I feel like there may be potentially some story reasons why. I don't know that for a fact, but I feel like it could be a thing.
But yeah, I felt like it's just got the fresh energy it needed, really, because I feel like Jodie Whittaker was really harshly done by, because like she had one of the worst showrunners and production scripts wise, whereas like she was a good doctor.
She was a doctor, right?
She's a very good doctor. She just had terrible scripts. It was one of those where good actor, bad script, rather than some of the times you have. If you can only carry it so far if the overall things. And she had some of the most controversial episodes, but she's been justified because some of the most controversial story points that people hated have been followed through and doubled down on, and actually they're playing like key parts in this new series. Yeah. And I'm really looking forward to it. And it's now distributed in America via Disney, so I do feel like it's had a bit more budget. I feel like they've had a few more bits and bobs sent their way. But
they're going to own everything at one point, aren't they?
Well, they can't legally, can they? But anyway, just to say, I was pleasantly surprised by it, and yeah, it was good.
Well, look at us, Doctor Who. Well, I don't know anything about it. Yeah, good. Well, I missed it at the top again. John rushed me in earlier, so I didn't do anything. Big time. Listen, we've got t-shirts on sale, £18, pre-shrunk cotton, responsibly sourced. Again, I feel just so comfy right now. In my Movies in a Podshell t-shirt,
with nothing but my t-shirt on.
Yeah, I've got no trousers on right now. I'm like Winnie the Pooh. I'm like Winnie the Pooh.
Do you remember
right
that song, by the way?
No, I don't.
Oh.
Anyway, you can go and find Movies in a Podshell t-shirts at moviesinaPodshell.sumupstore.com. You can write into us at moviesinaPodshell@gmail.com.
Yes.
You can find me us Movies in a Podshell on Instagram. John, where can they find you?
At jcb.video.
We do have a Twitter, but we don't really use it. It's just at in a Podshell, and
I literally deleted my Twitter app off my phone the other day. So let's just call it quits, shall we?
Well,
it's an absolute cesspit recently, but that's a chat for another day.
I mean, it has been for the last 10 years.
It's so bad.
I hate it. It's so negative. Anyway, you can also find us on YouTube /Movies in a Podshell. Yeah, we're getting a bit of traction on YouTube now. That's good, eh?
Yeah, and this video, notice that Riverside quality.
Oh, look,
Riverside.
Look how good we look. Anyway, right, we better go because we're going to have a new episode in a couple of weeks, but we've got no idea what we're doing because we're silly. Anyway, John, say goodbye, John.
Bye.